Will the Committee on Budget please come to order? It is Tuesday, May 21, 2024. It is 9:03 a.m. I would like to welcome our committee members. We have Committee Vice Chair Wire, followed by Councilmember Kia Aina, followed by Councilmember Say and Councilmember Tolba. And I would also like to welcome Councilmember Chipola to the chambers. To the committee. The following members are participating. Oh, we don't have any following members participating remotely, but pursuant to Section 92-3.7, the Hawaii Revised Statutes, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda via two ways, remotely and in person in the council chamber. Remote and in-person oral testimony will be allowed when the agenda item is taken up. All persons who have registered to testify remotely by video conference will be called upon first. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. I will then give persons who have not registered an opportunity to offer testimony. Please utilize the raise hand feature on Zoom to be called upon. For those joining us by the telephone only, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. I will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. And when your number is called, please press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. Next up, some friendly reminders and tips. Video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you are also watching the proceedings on Olelo, please mute your television at the time you are called to testify. When the timer on the screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. Once all the remote testifiers have testified, I will proceed to in-person testimony in the council chamber. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. HRS Section 92-3.7 requires all votes at remote meetings to be conducted by roll call vote unless unanimous. Therefore, I will first call for objections, and if there are any, I will call for a roll call vote. For those council members participating, if there are any, from outside of the council chamber, we will ask that in accordance with HRS Section 92-3.7 that the meeting will automatically recess if we lose audiovisual contact with that council member. And we will not be able to reconvene until we re-establish contact. Therefore, I will ask that council member, if there's any, to announce beforehand if they are voluntarily signing out of the meeting. For written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, they will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. And as a courtesy, please silence or turn off all cell phones. Okay, members, moving forward to agenda item number 1, we have for action a resolution 24-138, which authorizes a transfer not to exceed $175,000 in general fund monies from the Department of Emergency Services Administrative Activity Salaries Character of Expenditure and $356,000 in general fund monies from the provision for salary adjustment and accrued vacation pay activity to a emergency medical services activity salaries character of expenditure for fiscal year 2024 for increased overtime costs. Members, we do have a proposed hand-carried CD1. It is OCS 2024-0539 at 5/17/2024 at 2:12 p.m. and it was submitted by myself. And the CD1 makes the following amendments. It inserts the current expenses character of expenditure for the provision for salary adjustments and accrued vacation pay activity in the second whereas clause and in the be it resolved clause. So basically puts a provision account activity in there and makes miscellaneous technical and non-substantive amendments. We will first go with with testifiers, and then we'll go to discussion. We will now proceed with remote testifiers. When I call your name or last 3 digits of your phone number, please follow the prompts. We don't have any registered testifiers, but is there anyone online who wishes to testify? Please use the raise hand feature. For agenda item number 1. Seeing none, we will now move on to in-person testifiers. Is there anyone in person who wishes to testify? We don't have any registered testifiers. Okay, seeing none, we are closing out testimony and moving into discussion. We have from the administration, we have our Deputy Director of Honolulu Emergency Services Department, Ian Santee. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Again, we just respectfully ask to allow for this transfer. Again, we had some unexpected overtime costs, and we're trying to find we looked for the funds internally to address it, but we do need some assistance from the external funds. That's all.
Okay, and how many overtime staff does this cover?
This is just covering the funds that were projected. So working with our budget office as well as our fiscal accounting, this is the projection of what we may be up short to, and that's why it's up to that amount. It's not necessarily that full amount. It's projected on an average payroll, we're looking at about $290,000. So that's what our average payroll is for a 2-week period. I mean, not $290,000, $1 million. The couple $100,000 is just about the overtime specifically. So $200,000 is on overtime on a payroll.
Okay, and do you base it off of a pattern and how you budget for it? And how much do you normally anticipate of overtime?
So I think when we talked previously about our emergency medical services division, because they're on a lot of this has to do with collective bargaining adjustments, and because they have things like less than 10 hours of rest, or when our employees are working their 7 days straight, or we're changing their shift, those are all collective bargaining inclusive adjustments that are made into the salaries. So because of that, it does get a little bit higher on average, but we're spending about $2.4 million for a pay period. I'm sorry, we're spending on a pay, we're budgeted $2.4 million annually just for all the built-in overtime of their 48-hour work week. So our employees in EMS, they work a 36-hour work week, then a 48-hour work week, then a 36. So annually, we're budgeting $2.4 million, and the rest of the overtime is for when our first responders go on late calls or they have to be called back to work.
Okay, thank you. And, for the past decade or more than a decade, you don't come often to
Correct.
transfer this. So this is, I want to say a rarity, but it doesn't happen very often. I only can remember maybe one time, like forever ago, that HESD has come to transfer something like this. And so in the upcoming or in the future budgets, are you going to be tweaking
Yes, we are.
Budgeting potential overtime costs?
Yeah, and Budget Chair, thank you very much for that acknowledgement. And we don't, I've been as the deputy for 12 years, I think we've done it, this is the second time we've asked for that request. And most of the time, we've actually tried to stay within our budget, and we do. So we're looking at different ways of, as you quoted, tweaking it to ensure that we don't come back to you next year.
Okay, thank you. Members, do you have any questions for the Deputy Director on this transfer? No? Okay, all right.
Thank you very much,
Sounds
Chair.
great. Okay, members are still in discussion. Any discussion on this? Okay, any discussion on the proposed committee draft about the adding provisions into the second clause, whereas clause, and in the be it resolved clause? No? Okay. The chair recommends that Resolution 24-138 be amended to a CD1. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 24-138 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you very much. Moving forward, Resolution 24-117, which is approving the transfer of parcels 1 through 6 within Pohala Marsh, Waikele, Oahu tax map keys 1-93001-002 and 006 and 021 and 022 land area, and also 32 acres to the State of Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources at no cost. Members, we also have a proposed hand-carried CD1 at OCS 2024-520-2024 at 10:45 a.m. Submitted by myself, and this CD1 makes the following amendments. A, inserts a new 10th whereas clause listing the aggregate estimated value of the parcels to be transferred as $7,288,600. It also adds language to the be it resolved provisions to indicate that transfers are made to have the parcels maintained for conservation purposes in perpetuity and subject to various city easements. And C, makes miscellaneous technical and non-substantive amendments. Members will go with testimony first, and then we'll go into discussion. We don't have any registered testifiers. Is there anyone who wishes to testify? Please use the raise hand feature for agenda item number 2. Okay, seeing none, we'll now move on to in-person testifiers. We don't have any registered in-person testifiers. Is there anyone else online who wishes, in person, who wishes to testify? Seeing none, we are now, that now concludes our testimony. We are now going into discussion, going to the city administration. We have Director of Budget and Fiscal Services, Director Kawano. Good morning, Director.
Good morning, Budget Chair, Honorable Council Members, Andy Kawano, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. Budget and Fiscal Services supports the transfer of parcels under Resolution 24117. We want to share that while the city owns the parcels, subject to the easements Budget Chair mentioned, the state has been preserving the property in the current agricultural zone, such that we feel that the transfer makes sense and support it. Here to take questions.
Okay, we have Councilmember Toba.
Thank you, Chair. You know, if DLNR has any future plans with it?
We don't. Our understanding is they're going to continue to keep it as preservation land, conservation land.
Okay, all right.
Council Vice Chair Kiaina.
Thank you, Director. Who made this request? Did the city unilaterally offer it, or did DLNR request it?
I believe DLNR approached the city. Let me turn to my staff back there. That's correct. So DLNR
Okay.
approached the city for the transfer.
I appreciate it, of course, but they are the largest landowner in Hawaii, and as you may know, historically, they've tried to divest themselves of agricultural lands. And so the only reason I'm having pause here is that it's 32 acres of agricultural zone that will be forever lost. And I don't know if people even knew that the city had it or the zoning. And so I guess I'm concerned about the transfer because, as you know, in recent years, we transferred agricultural lands in Maunawili to two nonprofit organizations in Kailua and for food security. So one is going to plant kalo, and then the other is going to be other types of crops. And I guess I just want, when we have this, I want to have a better say in how we dispose of city lands, because I know that DLM had a hearing. I don't know what their outreach was like, but logically, I would have contacted the Office of Hawaiian Affairs and nonprofit organizations who do Aina-based or agricultural type activities, because they may be interested in it. So I guess for now, I would prefer to, I ask the chair to defer this until we are given an opportunity. I know that this is in Councilmember Toba's district, but if you don't mind, I just feel that it's a lot of acres, and I just don't see the rush in giving Department of Land and Natural Resources more land. Quite frankly, what they should be doing with all of their agricultural lands is swapping it for the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, who has 30% of the inventory in conservation lands. So I'm just looking for opportunities in all of our districts for nonprofit organizations, again, to potentially do agricultural activities, including Aina-based agricultural activities.
Okay,
We appreciate the request for additional due diligence, and I will just acquiesce to Vice Chair's request. Yeah.
okay, thank you. Councilmember Tupola, and then Councilmember Toba.
Aloha, Director. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, typically, in the stateside, actually just this year in January, DLNR transferred 24,000 acres over to Department of Agriculture because a lot of the ranchers were asking for all of the lands that DLNR was sitting on and nothing being done because they really needed it for grazing, for farming, for other reasons. And actually this year, they're going to transfer another 6,000 over to Department of Agriculture. So it's kind of interesting that they would ask for it because they seem to be trying to get rid of their whole inventory because they've sat on it for so long. And that's been years that the ranchers have asked DLNR to give up the land and let them at least have some more grazing space or whatnot. So if you could, if we could kind of pause and figure out what's going on the state side before we just give them land that is either going to sit or they're just giving it away, because there is a lot of good that could be done with it, but they're dealing with thousands and thousands of acres. We have just like, a small amount here that we could try to make a better decision besides putting it into an inventory that will sit. So thank you though for your thoughts and maybe for thinking a little longer on this.
Councilmember Toba.
Thank you, Chair. Because it's in my district, I would like to take a look at the site, and I would support deferring to. Thanks.
Thank you. Council Vice Chair Kia Aina.
And as a last comment, this afternoon in EMLA, we will be having a hearing to repeal certain council advisory committees, and I will be recommending that the proposal to repeal the Agricultural Development Task Force also be postponed. I think that is a perfect avenue.
Sorry, council member, we have to not talk about items that we're going to be taking up in the future committee. Yeah.
But I think it's relevant to discussion. I'm simply trying to say that I'm just trying to contextualize the city's role in agriculture. Is that relevant? Can I talk about agriculture? This is an agricultural parcel. I feel that I can talk about agriculture. The city's role in agriculture is that we have a agricultural grants program, and we're going to be rolling out a food systems one, right? And I guess I will be looking at a mechanism, and potentially this afternoon I will be discussing that further. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was a good way around it. Thank you very much. Okay, so I do have a few questions. Okay. I'll go with our committee vice chair, Wire.
Thank you, Chair. No, I just wanted to add some specificity to the follow-up because I want to make sure, what like Vice Chair is mentioning, what it would be used for if it got transferred. If it's part of a bigger discussion of swapping responsibilities in different areas, I think that would be helpful. And then, yeah, I think, look forward to the future conversation. Mahalo.
Thank you. I do have questions before I make any recommendation or anything like that. I do note, I just want to know the process of how we got to this resolution. I know that DLNR reached out to the city, and then there was a public hearing with DLM. Would you be able to explain that?
I was not a participant of the public hearing, but based on the documentation I've looked at, there was not any opposition to the transfer to the state.
Do you remember when the public hearing, the DLM public hearing occurred?
In the 22 timeframe under Director Hayashi at that time.
Okay, so so I do have a note here in the documents that the DLM public hearing was held in December of 2021. And so I was wondering how come it took a while to, I guess, get to this point, and maybe there should have been further discussion at the council level before it even got to a resolution or committee hearing point.
May I check with staff real quick on that question?
Okay, yeah.
They're right back there.
Okay.
Budget Chair, thank you for the time. So, yeah, so the public hearing happened in the FY22 timeframe. And we, in the area of property management, budget and fiscal services, had a lot of things going on at that time. We had the point person, we had staff who unfortunately passed away due to COVID. And as a result, it got pushed back, in terms of priority. So what we will do, though, going forward, because this is not the first time that we've had a reso that has been questioned and asked to be further reviewed. So I think going forward for transfers, would talk to you and determine if we should have a briefing before we go into reso so that we can discuss any future transfers, especially with the state, ahead of time. So we'll do that. But the delay was primarily due to capacity issues at BFS. Yeah.
Okay, understood. And I'm sorry to hear that, and I'm glad that it's getting back on track and that we can have the discussion at the least. I do have a question relating to the city's license agreement. When does the city's license agreement with the state for the maintenance of the marsh expire?
I'm going to have to check with staff, if you don't mind, on that. I know the maintenance is being handled by the state. I don't know when the license expires. I'll find out if we have that information.
Okay, no problem. Maybe
you can hold for a sec.
We probably would have a further discussion anyway. And members, I will look to adopting the CD1 first, amending it to a CD1 and then deferring it for the time being, and hopefully BFS can have further discussion with the members, yeah? Members, are there any other further questions or discussion on this item? Council members say. Oh, and also I would like to welcome Councilmember Dos Santos Tam to the meeting.
No, Madam Chair, the only request I make is that I'm shocked that the recipient is not here this morning. You know what I'm saying? The recipient who is receiving this transfer is not here to testify. Is it a priority of the state on the transfer?
Council member, that's I think a very good consideration. So I think when we have the briefing to further discuss the transfer, we'll make sure that a rep of DLNR is here so they can explain what their plans are.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that point, members, and especially Council Members Say. So duly noted. Members, any other last discussion or questions for the director? Okay. All right. Members? The chair recommends that Resolution 24-117 be amended to the hand-carried CD1. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? The resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that action on Resolution 24-117 CD1 be postponed to a date and time to be determined by the chair. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving forward to agenda item number 3. Thank you, Director. Agenda item number 3 is Resolution 24-118, which is adopting the policy to guide the award of monies from the Grants and Aid Fund, starting with the fiscal year 2026 grants solicitation, that no organization be awarded more than one grant with a maximum award of $150,000 per fiscal year. Members, I do want to note that this was a recommendation from the Grants and Aid Commission in their report. And also, we had a robust discussion about grants and aids and the amounts when we did take up the proviso in the Special Budget Committee last week. Let's see. Well, I'll go with remote testifiers first. Are there any remote testifiers? Please just raise hand feature. We have Angela Young.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of chairs. Wishing to comment. So if the GIA is reduced from 200,000 to 150, it will negatively affect the nonprofits and the expenditure of funds that the nonprofits have planned with community outreach and to support the community further. So the GIA funds the nonprofits actively kind of battle against each other to get the funds, right? To get prioritized, to get the funding. And so they are in a competition with each other to get the funding. And if they don't get the full funding,
Thank you, Angela.
then
So
have to
you're in
community
opposition?
I'm just wishing to comment.
Okay, thank you.
That's just a perspective.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in person online who wishes to testify? Seeing none, we are now closing remote testimony. We will now move to in-person testifiers. We don't have any registered in-person testifiers, but is there anyone else in person who wishes to testify? Seeing none, okay, members, we are in discussion. I do want to note before that that you can see the report for the use of GIA funds as Departmental Communication 147. So the Commission recommended reducing the maximum GIA award from $200,000 to $150,000 beginning with fiscal year 2026. And yes, the organizations would reduce the amount of funds that they would receive, but also it would increase the amount of organizations that would then get funding. So the change was to raise it to 200,000 was back in 2020 via Resolution 20-263 when it raised it from $125,000 to $200,000, and so I want to have that discussion with this resolution and also have questions from the administration. But first up, we can have from our city administration, I don't know, we have Director Krucky or whomever you wish to provide information on your opinion about the resolution which stemmed from the report from the GIA Commission. Hi, Director Krucky. Good morning.
Good morning. Budget Chair Cordera, Vice Chair, Vice Chair Matt Wire, and Vice Chair Kia Aina, and honorable council members, Anton Krucky, Director, Department of Community Services. We appreciate the opportunity to discuss this with you. Of course, the department will support whichever place we land because we're really the administrators of this program. So we're open for questions that you may have.
Okay, members, do we have any questions? Before I move on to questions, we have Council Vice Chair Kia Aina.
You are not opposed to this resolution, correct?
That's not actually our position. If I had to make a firm position, we're opposed going under 150 because we think that really dilutes the program a lot. The 200 gives a lot of the organizations a robust capabilities to execute some of their grants. But in terms of being for or against, we really are firm on that. We don't want to go below 150.
Okay, and that's what this resolution does.
Right.
Okay.
You can have a resolution where you keep it at 200, and then each year you can decide whether or not you want to be at 150. I know the commission recommended it for FY26, and we'll come forward with their recommendation for FY25. We can administratively put that in your whole package so you can do it efficiently. But in terms of what you're trying to do, if you want to leave it at this, at 150, you can. It generally is going to be 10 to 12 to 14 more organizations would be able to get funding. Depends on what the commission allocated, because it's not clear cut, line, because they'll say if someone's applying for this amount, they wouldn't get awarded, on the list. But generally, you're going to get that kind of a range difference if you go to 150 from 200.
Okay, and my second question is, what kind of outreach is undertaken by your office to make sure that nonprofits who have never applied before learn about the program and compete? Do you guys do a robust outreach effort?
We do. So we would, if this resolution would pass, we would include that in our outreach services, so they'd be able to plan appropriately. But we do how-to classes, and we invite people in, both webinars and in person, to help people develop their applications. Yes.
And my last question is, you know, we have community emergency response teams in our various districts, and they're a little more animated than they have ever been, given the fact that I think they understand that they will be needed in a catastrophic event in all of our communities, and to work with the governmental agencies. Do you think that they would be eligible for a GIA grant?
Well, I certainly think they would if they qualify as a 501c3. We like the robustness of the folks that want to work with us, but we just prepare the classes and the education, and after that, we really once those proposals come in, they go to the commission.
Okay.
We just administer.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, members. Any other questions? Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you, Chair. So with the threshold of the 200,000, just for clarity, every organization that applied could get up to that, or they actually got the 200,000, or were there some that were way below that, or below the 150,000 threshold of what they requested?
Yeah, not all organizations apply for 200,000.
So do you have an idea of how many actually were, I guess, within the 150,000 range? Is it the majority of them?
The majority, yes. So if I went through the list for FY 25, we'd be at 62 at the 200,000. You'd go up to 79 on that list at the 150. So I don't know that I could go through that list and count them, but.
No, I'm just trying to make a point that, I mean, I know some in my own or community that didn't get up to the 200,000. So I think by dropping down the threshold, I think we're going to actually be hitting the median of how many people apply and what they're applying for. So I'm just trying to make a point that I think if there was tons of them that needed 200,000, then we'd have to kind of keep it up there because that's what we're funding. But I think a lot of them, the majority are around the 150,000 mark of what they're requesting, smaller amounts, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I think that's correct. And you know, there are a fair amount that are at the 200,000. The adjustment that the nonprofit really would make with this resolution would be they really have to consider deliverables and staffing, because with a lesser amount at 200,000, they have more capabilities to supply the staffing to do it, and we're very careful on that. So I think the department, it behooves us to make sure when we're educating them that we do that. We don't want them to be deliverable rich but staffing poor, because then they can't execute, right? So we play both sides, and we'll try to do a good job of educating in that realm.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, every year I host my own town hall with people interested just to further explain it so that I understand it and that the people in my community applying understand it. So thank you for your work on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, any other questions relating to this? Councilmember Say.
Yes, directly the issue before us, for me, is the fact that I don't believe the increase will occur in the next fiscal year in anticipation of the 1% set aside. Understanding what the overall real estate market is like, you have more and more nonprofits competing for the grant and aid. And I think this is the reason why we're looking at lowering it from the 200 to 150. But more importantly, the criteria is to determine would the commission continue on supporting those organizations that have been receiving funds for a great number of years, and that is part of their base operating budget. That's the concern I have, number one. And number two, how do you give opportunities for new nonprofits that have incorporated in providing these type of other services that they may be providing? And that's the discussion. I think the commission is doing a great job in it, but nobody from the commission who wants to take a position on the increase or decrease?
I'd like to bring up Administrator Shane Kaji, who is for our Office of Grants Management, because he interacts with the commission a lot to have that discussion. Shane?
Good morning, Budget Chair Cordero, honorable council members. Thank you for the question, Council Member Say. The commission has taken over the last few years recommendation of the $150,000 ceiling. I believe they would still be in support of that. We do have an upcoming Grants and Aid Advisory Commission evaluation session on Thursday, which the public is more than welcome to come on board, but we're gonna be looking at different things such as maybe simplifying some of the application processes as well.
Okay, may I follow up? Mr. Akaji, let me ask you this question. How can we help, or do the commission foresee an increase in the number of applications?
Thank you for that question. Let me see if I understand you. I know earlier you mentioned that there was an encouragement of how to fund organizations that are new to the city versus also those that continually come back to us. There is a mechanism in place in which we award bonus points for organizations that have never received funds for the city, and that bonus points are based off of what they score on their overall proposal, and that bonus points also go down the more grants or contracts that they receive from the city. So in other words, if they have 0 grants in the last 3 years, it will be a 10% bonus of their proposal score. If they receive between 1 to 2, it will be 7%, 3 to 6, I believe it was 5%, 3% between 7 and 9, and 0 if there's 10 or more contracts with the city.
Okay, great. And one final thought for me would be, when Calvin Say applies for a grant, the pre, and I don't qualify, do you give me an opportunity of a post-conference in explaining what happened, why I did not receive or get the approval for my application?
Sure.
That's the post side.
Nonprofits are able to request their scorecard, their detailed scorecard, in which they're able to receive their detailed scores based on the criteria that they're graded upon. Also, the commission also firmly believes that as an advisory commission, they're simply making recommendations to the council. So as the ordinance states that the final say does rest with the city council, I believe that that's where they would find their advocacy at.
Okay, thank you very much, Shane.
Thank you very much. Oh, Shane, don't go away. Okay. I have a question relating to just the whole process and just going down to the nitty gritty. When we have our grants and aids, whether it be 150 or 200,000, we're not looking to support a whole nonprofit organization's program or staffing through this grants and aids program, right?
No, the organizations, when we issue the request for grant proposal, the ceiling is mentioned there, so it's up to the nonprofit to determine what they want to fund with the grant. With whether it's 200,000 or 150,000, it would be up to the organization to take a look at that funding amount. For a lot of the new organizations, I believe they're really used to foundation type granting or a legacy type granting, where once they're awarded funds, they continually receive funds year after year. So having one where it's competitive year after year with a clear process is a little bit different.
Thank you. Shane, you know, since the change in 2020, and I would say, I guess, in effect in FY21, right? How many times has a Grants and Aid Commission recommended to lower the 200,000 back to 150,000?
I believe the first time they recommended was in FY23, so this would be the 3rd time, and I believe that was also because of COVID, the pandemic. The commission wanted to spread out the funds and recommended that lower amount so that more organizations could receive funding.
Okay, so we are in the fifth fiscal year, right?
Yes.
Since the change. Oh wait, 4th fiscal year since the change. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so 3 out of the 4 recommendations from the Grants and Aid Commission has recommended to lower it, not all the way back to its original, but at least a median, as Councilmember Tipola mentioned, a median of 150. Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. I do note. It's great to know that the Grants and Aid Commission evaluation. I'm sorry. What is that meeting? Is occurring this Thursday. You said.
Excuse me, sorry?
The Grants and Aid evaluation meeting is happening this Thursday?
Yes, at 1 o'clock.
Okay. With that, I mean, of course, this is my resolution. Of course, I support it, but I would like to see how their discussion moves forward, and how would I be able to get them to talk about my resolution?
Sure. The agenda is posted on the city's website as well as the Zoom link, and we can also send an invite to the council members as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe would love to have that discussion there. And so, I mean, this where we are right now is a pretty good sweet spot to if we get to hear the discussion with the GIA Commission's evaluation meeting, and then maybe bringing it back up next month or so.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Members, any thoughts about that? Okay. All right then. I will then make a recommendation as their GIA evaluation meeting is this Thursday. I would like to have that discussion, but I do recognize, once again, 3 out of the 4 fiscal years, GIA commissions have recommended that we lower it down to the median of 150,000. But with that, I do want to recommend that the resolution 24-118 be postponed to a date and time to be determined by the chair. I would like to see how that discussion goes, have further discussion with the commissioners, and also, to see how that goes. But that's my current recommendation. Any discussion? Any objections? Reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving forward. Bill 25, 2024, repealing an outdated ordinance related to license fees, introduced by Councilmember Dos Santos Tam. I will first allow for testifiers, and we can go into discussion. First up, we don't have any registered remote testifiers, but is there anyone online who wishes to testify? I see Angela Young.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES. So the Bill 25 goes off of Hawaii Revised Statute 445-15 that says each council has a power by ordinance to require or eliminate the requirement for the licensing of auctions under Part 2 of this chapter, secondhand dealers under Part 7 of this chapter, and scrap dealers under Part 10 of this chapter, and to impose annual licensing fees, and to increase, decrease, or waive effective upon the expiration of any existing license the annual fees for a license issued under this chapter, or to exempt wholly or partially the payment by any religious, charitable, or educational organization or institution of any licensing fee imposed in this chapter, and blah, blah, blah. And it must adopt rules consistent with the laws concerning the conduct of the business as deemed necessary for public health, safety, or welfare. And then, so basically, this is just saying that the council has the right to charge the fee. And then also Act 149 defines the hotels, and it hasn't been updated since 1986. So if you want to continue charging the hotels for that fee, I think it should just be updated. Thanks.
Okay, so in support, is that correct? Okay, thank you very much, Angela. Okay, are there any other registered, remote testifiers who wishes to testify? Seeing none, well, we'll now move on to in-person testifiers. Is there anyone in the chamber who would like to testify? Seeing none, members, we are closing testimony. We will now proceed to discussion. I would like to defer to the introducer of the bill, and then we'll go to the city administration. Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you, Chair, for hearing this bill. This is one of several bills that my office has been working on this year to identify ordinances that we have that are outdated, antiquated, perhaps preempted by the state or unconstitutional. And this is one of those, as the state repealed our ability to have this business license in 2001, and the ordinance just hasn't been updated since. So this is just us modernizing our ordinances based on what we're allowed to do.
Thank you very much. Members, we would like to bring up from the city administration, Director Kawano.
Andy Kawano, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. We support the repeal of this section of the ordinance. We agree with modernizing city's ordinances.
Members, any questions for the city administration? Okay, all right. I have a question. When did the city cease to lease licensed hotels and boarding houses?
I've asked staff and no one knows.
No one knows.
So I don't think it ever got implemented, but I don't know 100%.
Interesting. Okay. Okay, good to know. Members, any discussion? Either things we can pose to the chair for the introducer or pose to the city administration who are in support of this bill. Any questions? No? Okay, all right. We just finished testifiers, so I don't have any further questions other than that either. So the chair recommends that Bill 25, 2024 be reported out for second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving forward, we have Bill 4. Agenda item number 5, we have Bill 4, 2024, which amends the authorization for the City and County of Honolulu to issue general obligation commercial paper in order to clarify and facilitate the use of such short-term debt. So we will get further clarification from the administration, but first I would like to start with testifiers. We don't have any registered remote testifiers. Is there anyone else online who wishes to testify? Okay, seeing none, we will now move on to in-person testifiers. Is there anyone in person who wishes to testify? Seeing none, we'll now move to discussion. Members, I do have a proposed CD1 here that is OCS. Bill, okay, hold on one moment. Thank you. So I have another, it is OCS 2024-054-1/5/21/2024 at 8:10 a.m. And it makes the following amendments. In sections 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the bill, it removes references to ordinances 19-225 and 21-33. It also adds a new section 6 of the bill, repeal of conflict, stating that all ordinances and resolutions or portions of ordinances and resolutions which were previously enacted or adopted by the council are repealed to the extent they are in conflict or inconsistent with any provision of this ordinance. Also, C renumbers bill sections subsequent to the new section 6. And D makes miscellaneous technical and not substantive amendments. With this, to begin our conversation or our discussion, from the city administration, we have our BFS director, Director Kawano.
Andy Kawano, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. We support Bill 4. The intent of introducing the bill was to add flexibility such that if commercial paper had to be issued to support affordable housing acquisition, development, operations, keep operations out of there, but acquisition development, we would be able to include mixed uses on the property.
Members, do we have any questions? Director, do you support the CD1, amended CD1?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So I have a question as it relates to I guess what's occurring also at the state level that will allow us that flexibility to, do we have an update about the bill? And if you could share a little bit about the bill that would provide the city and county of Honolulu that flexibility?
I apologize. I don't have the House bill number memorized, but I know the bill to allow mixed-use development is with the governor. If the governor signs, the bill will be effective to any acquisition development after December 31st, 2023. There is an issue with regard to the bill that legislators added in by amendment, and that is The bill has an early sunset date, I believe, within 4 years of the adoption. And that's going to have to be addressed probably next legislative session.
So are we saying that it doesn't allow us the flexibility anymore, or it won't be supported by the governor to sign into law for this fiscal year?
Yes. So if the House bill is signed into law, the updated ordinance through Bill 4 would reference the new statute allowing the use of TECP financing for the acquisition, development of property that would include affordable housing and mixed uses.
Understood. Well, we know that with the number Bill 4, that we were hopefully going to move this forward if we saw the bill signed into law as well. Are we then moving a little quicker if we have to wait for the next session to occur?
I don't think it would really matter because the reference to other laws in Bill 4 is very general, very broad, and we are the county is currently restricted on how it can use bond funds for county improvements, and we are restricted to specific sections of statute. So I think by passing the bill ahead of governor's signature is not a major issue.
Okay, that is great clarification to know. And also, do we know how much funding or financing we would be seeking with the passage of Bill 4?
As of right now, we've only used about $52 million of our cap. We have a facility in place for up to $100 million of TECP financing. With regard to the Evilay Center acquisition back in January, we used about $52 million. And we did it because we currently have interim operations that include holdover commercial tenants that can remain on the property for up to 3 years. And we needed to use TECP financing because of that, primarily of that fact. And the secondary fact that we're working on the overall master plan for development at this time.
Okay, thank you. So you mentioned that it's $52 million that we utilized for the last fiscal year, and that Evilay Center was the $52 million. So it's only one specific property or project that it was utilized for.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and if we were to accept this, or approve this bill, or move this bill forward, how much more funding are we looking to seek once again?
So currently, the city has a ordinance in place that allows us to use TECP financing for up to $450 million. However, $350 million is allocated to HART for rail construction. We're going to look at the allocation going forward and work with council members to perhaps do a reallocation, but we're not ready to do that yet.
Okay. And so I know that in addition to the TCP and seeking funding in other ways, we also are appropriating funding. We have appropriated funding, whether it be in capital improvement in CIP or in operating. So what's the difference in utilizing our CIP or operating funds versus seeking this same funding that HHFDC also uses?
Yeah, there is a relationship. So we expend based on authority provided by council based on our CIP budget, which goes into ordinance once adopted. So expenditure using, for instance, Evile Center first. We used two appropriations. We used about $41 million of the affordable housing appropriation, and we used about $11 million of community revitalization. And we did that because we had in mind that on an interim basis, the center would be used to address homeless and act as a sheltering center, such that a part of the property during an interim phase, during the period during which we operate prior to development of affordable housing, we allocated a pro rata share, or plan to have allocated a pro rata share for homeless services. So we use the appropriations, those two appropriations, as authority to do the acquisition, and the financing that went along with it, we use TECP financing because of due to the reasons I mentioned earlier.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Members, any questions for Director Kawano? Okay, I know that I have a question for Corporation Counsel, but maybe you can answer this. This is as it relates to the amendments for the new sections relating to repeal of conflicts. And Ordinance 01-28, which this bill relates to for commercial paper, has been amended many times. So if either you or Corporation Counsel can please explain the need for the new sections for the repeal of conflicts.
Corporation Counsel will explain. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning, Budget Committee Chair and members. I'd suggest that if you had legal questions that we go into executive session.
Never mind. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. But members, we do have it as an amendment here. Once again, the repeal of conflicts states that all ordinances and resolutions or portions of ordinance resolution which were previously enacted or adopted by council are repealed to the extent they are in conflict or inconsistent with any provision of the ordinance. So you can see it in on B of the bill. Members, if we do have any questions, let me know, and we can go into executive session. But does anyone have any questions relating to the bill itself, or any questions about process? Nope. Okay, seeing none. The chair recommends that Bill 4, 2024 be reported out, be amended to a CD1. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. The chair recommends that Bill 4, 2024 CD1 be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving forward. Agenda item number 6, Resolution 24-136, authorizing the Director of Budget and Fiscal Services to issue and sell in one or more series not to exceed $10 million principal amount of general obligation bonds of the City and County of Honolulu for financing the amount appropriated in Ordinance number 24, which will be updated when we do approve Bill 13, 2024 CD1, and as may be further amended of the City and County of Honolulu for the purpose of financing capital costs of the Honolulu Rail Transit Project. We'll start with testifiers first. We have registered remote testifier. We have Angela Young.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES in strong support. So delays in the funding for the HART train will result in bad things happening. So this general obligation bond is for the authorization of the Director of Budget and Fiscal Services to issue and sell in one or more series not to exceed $10 million contingent upon the approval of Bill 13 for the purpose of funding HART. And so in the last board meeting for HART, there were legislative discussions about House Bill 2380, which was heard in Senate Committee Culture and the Arts, in which CARES testified to support. And that was for an emergency appropriation. The purpose of the act was to get the special funds to allow the State Department of Budget and Finance to disperse funds for the Mass Transit Special Fund. So basically, how it's explained to me
Thank
is
you, Angela. Mahalo.
okay.
Mahalo, Angela. Okay. Is there anyone else online who wishes to testify? Seeing none, we'll now move on to in-person testifiers. Is there anyone in person who wishes to testify? Seeing none, members, we are now done with testifiers. We are now in discussion. We have from the administration, we have Director Kawano.
And excuse me, Andy Kawano, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. Administration requested Council to review Resolution 24-136. This resolution covers a required contribution the city committed to in agreement with the FTA. It's the amount that is scheduled for FY25, fiscal year 25, in the sum of $10 million. We have future scheduled amounts of $10 million for fiscal years 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30, and then $9 million in FY31. The total being contributed by the city is $214 million.
Thank you very much, members. Any questions? Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you. Aloha, Director. So I think to date, we've paid the 145 million of the 214 million, and so we have about 69 million left to pay off. I guess my question is, when Executive Director Kahikina came forward and said that they weren't floating any bonds, which was a relief to a lot of us because it was starting to become a thing, right? Everyone feels like we're giving more and more money to the rail when really the bonds were something that was agreed upon and written into the full funding grant agreement as the way that they would distribute the money over time. However, our portion, the 214 million, there is no specification that we were going to be floating bonds to pay our portion. And to date, I don't think we have floated bonds for the 145 million that we paid so far. The 10 million, which I feel like on a regular basis annually, we at least have 10 million, if not more, that's being returned from vacancies and whatnot. My question is, one, if we float a bond for 10 million, how much do we end up paying with interest on the back end for that? So I know you said it's like 10 million for the next, handful of years until we reach the last year, which is 9 million. How much more money would we be paying on the 10 million if we float a bond rather than just paying out the amount?
Off the top of my head, I'm not really sure. I do know that the scheduled maturities are shorter. They end in fiscal 31.
Yeah.
And they're shorter because they're timed with the sunsetting of the GET contribution we get from the state. I would have to, if you need that information, it'd be better if I calculate it and submit to council the actual calculation for the $10 million.
Yeah, I guess, the only reason I'm asking that is because I feel like the amount is small. Like the 10 million is something that we have that we can pay off. So why would we float a bond to then pay more interest on it if we have only 10 million that we're required to pay out every year? Why can't that just be built into the budget instead of floating a bond?
I think it's a wash because short-term rates are so high now. It sort of makes sense because I think to the extent that we can conserve cash, keep it in treasury, we invest our excess cash, by investment pool for the city as a whole. I believe the interest rate currently on what we can earn on a very short-term basis will exceed, the tax-exempt bond interest rate that we pay. I believe the total in interest cost last year was 3.7%. So that includes issuance costs, attorney fees, everything loaded in along with interest. And
so probably 3.7 million then is what we're paying in interest.
Yeah, and I believe when I checked last, in our investment pool, we're earning about 4.5% annualized, almost 5%. So the cost is right now a wash, so it makes sense. And we have use of the cash for other operations of the city.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. Members, the chair recommends that Resolution 24-136 be reported out for adoption. Any discussions? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving forward to the last item on the agenda. Oh, wow. Awesome. Resolution 24-137, authorizing the Director of Budget and Fiscal Services to issue and sell in one or more series not to exceed $180 million principal amount of general obligation funds of the City and County of Honolulu for financing the amounts appropriated in certain capital budget ordinances of the City and County of Honolulu specified in such capital budget ordinances. First, I will start with remote testifiers. Is there anyone online who wishes to testify? Angela Young.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young. I'm just testifying to support the funds. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else online who wishes to testify? Okay, is there anyone in person who wishes to testify? Seeing none, members, we're in discussion. Also, some accompanying the communications is Departmental Communication 335 from Director Kawano. We have from the City Administration, you have Director Kawano.
Good morning, Andy Kawano again, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. With regard to Resolution 24-137, Administration asks Council to review the resolution that would set the amount of bonds that we plan to sell at par value. And our bond issuance / sale is anticipated to happen in the later June timeframe this year. The $180 million is based on our projection of what we're going to expend over the next fiscal year. And we do have some bond cash on hand that factors into the amount that we plan to sell. And again, as I've mentioned in numerous other testimonies, we always balance the amount we sell with what we plan to expend to, control the amount of debt service we have to pay. And I think the Treasury team has done a very good job in terms of, the projection so far, because we've never run short of bond proceed.
Thank you for that information. Director Kawano, out of the $180 million, do you know the breakdown that will go into each of the funds, between the General Improvement Bond Fund, the Highway Improvement Bond Fund, and the Solid Waste Improvement Bond Fund?
Our projections have that breakdown, by bond fund, but I didn't bring the breakdown with me currently. I would say that most of it goes into the General Improvement Fund, but then we have definitely a significant amount of Highway Improvement Fund sales, that'll be tied to that. And then some will go into the Solid Waste Fund this year because we have some needs for solid waste facilities that have to be improved.
Okay, Director Kawano, would you be able to provide that as information in the departmental communication? I would like to see this go out, but would like that information when we have our the next council meeting.
Will do. Okay. Not a problem. Thank you.
Members, any questions regarding this item? Okay, seeing none, the chair recommends that Resolution 24-137 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay, members, there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 10:11 a.m.